Northern bald ibis. The northern bald ibis represents a case study in evolutionary overspecialization and structural neglect. Its skeleton reveals a decurved, heavily ossified probing tool designed for high-pressure penetration of arid soils, a feature that dominates its cranium at the cost of all aesthetic symmetry. This bird is a biological relic, a highly efficient extraction machine housed in a frame that appears like an abandoned industrial prototype. In the 16th century, its specialized foraging frame made it a widespread fixture in the European Alps, yet the same rigid specialization eventually turned its anatomical niche into a liability. It is a stark, functional apparatus with zero budget allocated for visual maintenance or structural grace. Secretary bird. While the ibis is a specialized extractor, the secretary bird is a masterpiece of high-impact ballistics. Its skeleton is defined by the tarso-metatarsus, an elongated, reinforced calcium pillar engineered to withstand a kinetic discharge of 5 times the bird's body weight. This strike occurs in under 15 milliseconds, a mechanical action so rapid it bypasses the neural reflex of its reptilian targets. The architecture of these legs is optimized for stress distribution, functioning as a mobile hydraulic press that delivers 400 newtons of force with surgical precision. It is a terrestrial strike system that has traded the lightness of flight for the physics of a sledgehammer. While these birds use their bones as high-impact tools, the next biological disaster has turned its entire skull into a high-velocity railgun. Chameleon. The chameleon skeleton reveals an internal ballistic system that outclasses most industrial machinery, the os entoglossum. This is a specialized, rigid bone spear located in the center of the cranium, serving as the high-tension launch pad for a tongue that accelerates at 20 Gs. Looking at its skeleton is an exercise in forensic confusion, as the skull appears to house a projectile launching mechanism that is physically incompatible with the animal's otherwise lethargic infrastructure. When this knobby catapult triggers, it releases kinetic energy that would shatter a standard reptilian joint, requiring a unique reinforced cranial foundation. It is a high-velocity asset integrated into a structurally insolvent body, a masterpiece of predatory hardware that leaves the rest of the anatomy in a state of permanent sluggishness. This cranial specialization is shared by the sperm whale, whose skull is a massive, concave acoustic tank taking up 1/3 of its body mass. It houses a sonic cannon capable of reaching 230 decibels, enough to vibrate human internal organs into a liquid state. But this heavy-duty machinery would be crushed instantly in the environments where skeletons are forced to become transparent. Anglerfish. In the abyssal zones of the ocean, the anglerfish operates a skeleton that is 90% negative space. It is a fragile, translucent cage of needle-thin bones designed to survive the hydrostatic pressure of 1,200 meters without imploding like a cheap soda can. The jaw is mechanically decoupled from the cranium, allowing for a skeletal expansion of 120 degrees. This is a hostile takeover of prey that is economically too large for the fish's actual budget. It is a skeletal gulag of needle-sharp struts designed solely to lock the door behind the next meal. Glass sponge. Sharing this infrastructure of fragility is the glass sponge, which builds its entire foundation out of silica. It is a skeletal frame that is literally made of glass, thriving in a state of permanent structural risk where a single miscalculation in pressure results in total demolition. These deep-sea architects have abandoned solid calcium for a lattice of fragile fibers, a tactic mirrored by a creature that has turned its entire defense budget into a fragmented puzzle. Leatherback sea turtle. The leatherback sea turtle has rejected traditional solid shell architecture in favor of a chaotic mosaic of thousands of tiny polygonal bone plates. It resembles a porcelain set that was shattered and reassembled by a blind intern. This isn't a lack of funding, it is a tactical necessity for deep-sea infiltration. A rigid shell would crack at depths of 1,200 meters, so the leatherback opted for flexibility through fragmentation. To supplement this internal mess, its esophagus is lined with backward-facing cartilage spikes that turn the throat into a biological meat grinder. These spikes ensure that once prey enters the system, there is no possibility of a breach. It is a mobile bunker, sacrificing a solid foundation for the ability to operate under extreme atmospheric pressure. But while the turtle survives through fragmentation, the next predators are victims of a catastrophic design error in the visual department. Tarsier. The tarsier skeleton is a warning against over-surveillance. You aren't looking at a primate, you are looking at a pair of massive, hollow orbits that happen to have a body attached. Each eye is larger than its entire brain, an anatomical imbalance suggesting the evolution department spent the entire budget on sensors and forgot the processing unit. Its tibiofibular bones are fused into high-tension springs, turning its lower half into a biological pogo stick. Hammerhead shark. This sensor-driven madness is shared by the hammerhead shark. Its skull is a wide lateral expansion called a cephalofoil, a hydrodynamically suspect T-beam that spreads its sensors across a massive surface area. It turns the shark into a living metal detector, but the skeletal cost is a head that looks like an industrial I-beam from a collapsed bridge. Both creatures have sacrificed a balanced frame for a data-driven overload, a stark contrast to the creatures that have deleted their limbs entirely to save on metabolic taxes. Caecilian. The Caecilian is a skeleton stripped of all luxury. It is an endless, monotonous line of hundreds of identical vertebrae with no limbs and no exit strategy. It resembles a snake, but the skull is a massive, ossified battering ram designed for subterranean demolition. It is the ultimate reduction of complexity, a biological tube of calcium existing solely to push through the dirt. Snake. This minimalist tube is mirrored by the snake, which has turned its entire body into a modular transport system. Snake ribs are mobile supports that allow the body to expand around prey that should be impossible to swallow. It is a low-cost, high-efficiency design for life in the undergrowth, discarding the limbs department to avoid unnecessary maintenance. Yet even this efficient minimalism is more logical than a creature that allows its own teeth to commit a slow-motion execution. Babirusa. The Babirusa is the Darwin Award winner of the porcine world. Its upper canines do not grow downward, they erupt through the top of the snout and curve backward toward the skull. If the animal lives long enough, these tusks eventually bore into the forehead, leading to a slow, knichene self-execution. It is the only animal with a built-in expiration date based on its own dental growth, a maintenance backlog that ends in a lethal audit. Narwhal. This dental insanity is shared by the narwhal, whose horn is actually a spiraled left canine tooth erupting through the lip. This 3-meter-long tooth contains 10 million nerve endings, turning the skull into an asymmetrical sensor rig. It is a biological lance that looks like a manufacturing error. Both animals have allowed their dental hardware to hijack their structural integrity, leading to a life of perpetual imbalance. But at least they belong to a recognizable species, unlike the final failures in our evolutionary audit. Platypus. The platypus skeleton is proof that evolution sometimes hits the randomize button. It features the shoulder girdle of a lizard, the pelvic structure of a marsupial, and a bill that houses an electroreception grid. It is a Frankenstein-level assembly of discarded blueprints that somehow manages to operate in the wetlands. It is a biological glitch that refuses to be patched, a mosaic of evolutionary scraps. Magdeburg unicorn. However, the ultimate failure of skeletal logic isn't natural, it is human. The Magdeburg unicorn of 1663 is a monument to scientific incompetence. By combining the legs of a woolly rhino with the skull of a mammoth and the tooth of a narwhal, humans created a two-legged monstrosity that defies every law of gravity. It is the final boss of bad skeletons, a reminder that whether by millions of years of random mutation or one afternoon of human error, The internal foundation of life is often a glorious structural mess.